Kahani Bar brings you a cocktail of stories in English and in Hindustani. I am Payal and today's story is Rose Villa by Neerja K. A story of true love to be found and to be lost forever. April had arrived and with it spring, a season of hope and renewal, especially in the valley of Kashmir. After the harsh, treacherous winter months, the sleepy nature of the valley suddenly awakens. The spring showers melt away the icy blanket of snow, and soft golden rays of sun caress the earth, coaxing it back to life. The fruit trees begin to blossom, and the once bare poplars, chinars, and willows and other trees get busy adorning themselves. The icy lanes vanish, replaced by the warm breath of spring. There are no icicles hanging from the rooftops, no billowing smoke from the fireplaces, and no snowflakes dancing in the air. The ominous clouds begin to clear from the sky. Instead, there is a celebratory atmosphere as blooms burst forth and the air becomes a heady cocktail of fragrances. Rose Villa, how aptly named it was. It truly was a rose villa, a charming bungalow or perhaps a cottage, for it wasn't grand or opulent, yet it was aesthetically built with red bricks and a traditional shingle roof with gables perched in the attic. The brick exterior, however, was barely visible, as thick green creepers had covered every inch of the house over the decades. In the summer, the cerise and the pearl white rose vines added an enchanting touch to the villa, making the name all the more befitting, Rose Villa. At the window of one of those attics stood Nidhi, gazing out over the vast expanse of the garden that once was the most beautiful one in the neighborhood. Alas, now most of it was submerged under at least half a yard of water. Tall grasses had overtaken the spots where fruit trees like apple, plum, peach, and cherry once stood proudly. Even the long pathway where Nidhi's dogs used to run and playfully chase each other, trying to be the first to reach Nidhi, now seemed desolate and neglected. At the far end, on her left, stood an octagonal glazed gazebo which was a silent witness to the past glory of Rose Villa. She still remembered the countless evenings spent sipping tea with freshly baked muffins and scones. Cherished moments shared with her father and often with her best friend Madhu clung to her memory tree. And then there were the bonfires, the hot kebabs from Adu's, and the warmth of shared laughter. Often, Madhu would come over for sleepovers on the weekends. Those were the special days when the two would sit late into the night listening to music on the transistor. A birthday gift from Nidhi's father on her 21st birthday. They would carry the daris, local rugs, from the main house and spread them across the floor of the gazebo. There they would lie beneath the glass ceiling, watching the moon drift in and out of the few clouds in the bright summer sky, playing hide and seek with the stars which sparkled like their own youthful eyes, full of dreams and promise. Her dogs were never ones to miss out on such fun. They too would stretch out lazily alongside her. Nidhi could still recall the fragrance of the dozens of nargis, white daffodils that grew in the beds bordering the gazebo, and the intoxicating strong scent of yasmin, lilac, that bloomed in bunches on a large bush just at the entrance. The hydrangeas, white, pink, and blue, came alive in a special way under the moonlight. Even now, she could hear her mother's voice ringing in her ears, shrill and urgent. Nidhi, come inside now before you catch a chill. It's already 11 o'clock. Nidhi could picture her with half her body dangling out of the very window where Nidhi stood today, angrily waving her hands. Nidhi would giggle and turn to Madhu saying, I'm sure one day she'll lose her balance and fall out. They would both burst into giggles as they would hear her father's voice from the living room. Let them be. Why are you after them? These days won't last forever for them. Let them enjoy. Soon they'll fall into the never ending grind of married life. Her mother would retort, trying to close the window. Grind of married life? Huh? Is that what it's been for you? I'm warning you again, don't pamper her. Nidhi, embarrassed by her mother's crassness, would crank up the volume on the music. Nidhi's lazy gaze drifted to the gazebo, its glass panes mostly broken or missing, the wood begging for a coat of paint. The structure was surrounded by water now, and she knew fish were breeding there. She'd often seen kingfishers swoop down to hunt. She could spot a family of pendich, dab chicks thriving alongside a large group of ducks waddling away with their ducklings. Once a beautiful garden, it now resembled a swamp that also invited lots of migratory birds. It was 6 in the morning when Nidhi finally stepped away from the window. She grabbed her pashmira wrap from the bed, draping it snugly around her shoulders. She descended the wooden stairs, which creaked like an old skeleton even under her slight weight. She walked to the sitting room, where a large French window opened into the front lawn. Nidhi sank lazily into her favorite rocking chair that belonged to her father, facing the window. From here, she could see the smaller gate and the pathway leading up from the higher end of their property, the area not yet submerged in water. Rose Villa stood on land hemmed in by 2 streets on either side, making this gateway the most frequently used as it was closer to the house. The other gate and the driveway were reserved for cars and formal visitors, but now it remained jammed, rusted, and unused, a relic of the past. Spring was in full swing. Nidhi had sat by the same window day after day for years at this hour, reliving every moment she had spent with Prashant. She would imagine him walking through the gate, and just as he arrived, her mother would come down from her bedroom calling out to Baba Gul for her tea. That moment always jolted Nidhi back to the present, like a time traveler caught between 2 worlds. By then, Nidhi would have finished her cup of tea. She would rise, go through the day's work inside and outside the house, almost like a ritual. Today, however, was different. There was no one calling for her, not even her mother. She too had crossed over to the other side of that invisible wall, separating the 2 worlds. It had been only a month since Baba Gul had found her lifeless body in her bed, still and unmoving, when he had brought her the morning tea. She hadn't called out for him, and since it was getting late, he had decided to take the tea to her room. Krishna Anand had died in her sleep. Baba Gul stepped out of the dining room, beyond which lay the pantry and the kitchen. He stood in the doorway, holding Nidhi's morning tea on a tray. He wondered that day how many lives had been wasted in Rose Villa, and for what? Nidhi hadn't been feeling well herself. She suspected something was wrong with her heart, but she had kept putting off a visit to the doctor. That morning, as she was halfway through her thoughts, Baba Gul arrived with the tea she so cherished. His cap made a futile attempt to contain the tuft of white, ruffled hair on his head, and his equally wild white beard reached down to his chest. He stooped slightly under the weight of the years. He placed the tray on the side table. Nidhi looked up at him, her voice soft but steady. The door opened last night. Baba Gul blinked, confused. What door are you talking about? Are you all right? How many times I have told you to go see the doctor, but you never listen to me. I'm fine, Baba Gul. I do feel a bit weak and breathless sometimes, but that's all. Besides, when did I ever have the time to worry about myself? Baba Gul sighed. That's true. Promise me you'll go to the doctor today. Ignoring his words, Nidhi continued as though in a trance, her voice distant. The door in my dreams? You remember I told you about it? The dream that's haunted me for years? She continued in a dreamy, calm voice. I'm always in a room, a small one like a cube with just one door. I feel suffocated. There are no windows. I run to open the door and it opens into another room just like the first one. I rush to the next door and it leads into yet another similar room. I panic when I realize each door just leads to another room and another until I reach the door that won't open. I'm sure in my dream that if I'm able to open the door, it will lead me out. But I'm unable to open it no matter how much I try, and that's when I wake up. She paused, her eyes distant as the memory of the dream lingered in her mind. But last night, the door opened, and do you know what was beyond it? Baba, it opened into a garden full of flowers, nargis growing everywhere, and the sky was so vast and blue, just like the old days, said Nidhi, and her voice distant, her eyes still lost as if drunk on the beauty of her dream. Nidhi, my child life is not a dream. You've wasted yours living in your dreams. Dreams are only dreams. If they were meant to come true, they wouldn't be dreams anymore. Baba Gul's voice was laced with sorrow as he saw the distant look in her eyes. He muttered to himself, "Poor thing, she has nothing else left but dreams." He poured her a cup of tea, covered the teapot back with the tea cozy, and turned to walk back to the kitchen, but then stopped. He looked at Nidhi, her silver grey hair tied in a knot at the nape of her neck. She had grown old too soon. He remembered the bouncy, lively, cheerful young girl she once was, with a sparkle in her eyes. Decades had passed, but for him, it felt like just yesterday. He recalled the first time he had seen her with the young army officer, Captain Prashant, from the kitchen window. He had heard Prashant asking Nidhi, "My God, you have a garden full of fruits and flowers. Why then do you steal from others' gardens?" Baba Gul had chuckled to himself, thinking, so she's been on another stealing spree. Nidhi had taken Madhu's hand and replied with a grip, "Stolen flowers smell sweeter, and stolen fruits taste better." She had lifted a sari with one hand and gripped the pallu that held at least 10 stolen apples with the other, and ran through the gate, only to bump into her mother, Mrs. Krishna Anand. "Nidhi, why are you always running? Even when you try to wear a sari, when will you learn to walk properly? You're about to finish your college and you behave as if you're a 10-year-old. Mrs. Anand had scolded, her voice sharp. The puddle in which Nidhi had stepped splashed into her mother's expensive silk sari, leaving a marble print on it. The apples tumbled out to freedom and got strewn all around on the ground. "Madhu, why don't you talk some sense into this friend of yours?" Mrs. Anand fumed. Mr. Bridge Anand, following close behind, had interjected with a laugh. "Arey Krishna, let her be. You are the one who forces her to wear a sari. If she doesn't run around now, when will she? When she reaches your age?" Mrs. Anand shot a furious glance at her husband. "You think she's still a toddler? At her age, I was already married to you." "That's because she had nothing better to do," Mr. Anand whispered to Prashant, who had been standing in silence, curiously watching the drama unfold. Mrs. Anand overheard and shot him a glare that could freeze a fireball. "What did you say?" she demanded. "Nothing," Mr. Anand murmured. Mrs. Anand finally noticed Prashant and turned her fury on him. By the way, who are you and why are you here? Embarrassed by her mother's rudeness, Nidhi turned to her father. Papa, this is Captain Prashant and his friend Captain Prem. We took a ride with them. Mutual greetings and handshakes followed. Mr. Anand invited them for tea, but Prashant declined, mentioning that they had to report back to duty but would like to bank the invite for another time. Mr. Anand immediately took a liking to him, while Mrs. Anand made her disapproval clear. Over time, Nidhi and Prashant grew close. Nidhi was always full of life and there was never a dull moment when she was around. Her father, Mr. Brijnath Anand, owned large orchards in the valley and Nidhi shared a special bond with him. The only other person she was close to was their old servant Baba Gul. She could not get along with her mother, who always wanted to tame her, and Nidhi was like a little bird always ready for a flight. Nidhi's father grew fond of Prashant and he began to imagine him as his future son-in-law. Prashant and Nidhi saw each other regularly, and Prashant even invited her to a couple of army parties. The only person who made Prashant uncomfortable was Nidhi's mother. She was vocal about her disapproval of his friendship with Nidhi and accused her husband of encouraging it. So when Prashant proposed to Nidhi, the resistance came, as expected, from Mrs. Krishna Anand, and it was fierce. Are you mad? She had asked her peace-loving husband, her voice trembling with anger. You want to give your daughter away to a soldier who might not survive the next war? Do you hate her that much? How can you ruin her life like this? I have better plans for her. For the first time, Mr. Anand took a firm stand. Krishna, understand this. Nidhi loves him. He is healthy, capable, and above all, a gentleman. He has a bright future in the army. Mrs. Anand interrupted. If he survives the next war. Mr. Anand responded calmly. Wars don't break out every day. And who can change fate? If it is her fate, it cannot be changed. Learn to respect her choice. After much persuasion, Mrs. Anand reluctantly gave in. Her dreams of a richer, safer groom for Nidhi were dashed. Nidhi and Prashant got engaged, though Mrs. Anand's disappointment lingered. Time passed and autumn ended. The trees shed their leaves, standing bare and waiting for the winter snow. Their marriage was set for the coming summer. Nidhi stood dreaming by the window, with her back to the door, her heart full of dreams of a future with Prashant. She did not hear Prashant walking. He walked up to her, holding her by the shoulders, turned her around, and took her into his arms, holding her for a minute or two. She noticed a shadow of sadness on his face. Before Nidhi could speak, Prashant wrapped his arms tighter around her. Prashant, what's wrong? Why do you seem so tense? Is everything all right? Nidhi asked, her worry growing. He looked into her eyes, his voice heavy with emotion. Nidhi, the rumors are that there's going to be a war between India and Pakistan. We've been ordered to move to the Kargil sector immediately. I just stole a few moments to come and see you and bid you farewell, my darling. That night, Nidhi had a strange dream. She was in a meadow surrounded by flowers, her favorite the nargis. A rainbow arched across the sky and she felt light and free. She ran towards it, eager to cross over. To her surprise, she could walk on the rainbow, but as she moved forward, she saw that the valley of flowers below had transformed into a vast, dark, deep river. The rainbow had turned into a narrow, swaying bridge. She froze. The bridge was now incomplete from both ends. She could neither jump across nor run back. She woke up in a cold sweat, unable to shake the feeling of impending doom. As the birds began to chirp outside, Nidhi pondered over the dream, troubled by the uncertainty it held. Prashant left that morning.
What happened thereafter? Did the war break? Did Prashant come back? How did Krishna Anand react? Well, to find answers to all these questions, do tune into the Rose Villa Part 2 next week. This is Payal signing off. Do take good care until we meet again.